councillors, staff, and welcome to the gallery, all our visitors today, and of course, Moose. Just a reminder, Federation Council wishes to advise members of the public that council meetings will be recorded and will be available after each meeting on council's website. All care will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as visitors in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given to the event your image is broadcasted. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today, the Bangarang people, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside in this area. I extend that respect to elders, past and present, of the Bangarang nations. I'll now call for notification of pecuniary conflicts of interest in the business items. There be none. I'll move on to item number 3, confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. We have a mover. Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favour? Against?
Question, Mr. Mayor. Should we also be confirming the minutes of the extraordinary meeting?
Absolutely. Make that, I'll just follow on with that one if that's okay, councillors. So would someone like to move the confirmation of the extraordinary meeting? Move Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Meagle. All in favour? Against? Carried. Mayoral minute. Just one item in the mayoral minute. I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Brody. She turned 18. She's a regular visitor to our council meetings, unofficially a councillor. So happy 80th birthday, Councillor Brady.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No doubt there'll be some cake or something.
Oh no. Point of order, Councillor Brady. Item number 5, General Manager's report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. General Manager's report 5.1 is Federation Council Merger Implementation Plan, mid-year report. There's quite a lengthy piece of information in there. If there was a mover and a seconder, with a recommendation being to note the report, I wouldn't mind just elaborating on some of that and allow for some discussion.
So moved. Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Meagle. All in favour?
Have some discussion.
Yeah, we'll have some discussion.
So obviously that's the biggest task to create a new council was the merger implementation plan. I know there's been regular reports going back. This report brings forward the progress till the end of December. Huge amount of tasks, and the staff continue to do a terrific job in pulling the two former organisations together, and along with the councillors now who are well and truly entrenched into our operations. So there's quite a lot of tasks identified in the report, and as we sort of work through them now, some of those tasks are being merged into one, and then we're really trying to focus now on making sure that the last, I suppose, piece of the work really tries to focus on some projects that we think are going to be really helping the council become much more sustainable and synchronised going forward. The report does go into the detail of the funding, so we were given $5 million for implementation and merger costs, and as at the 31st of December 2017, just a fraction over $4 million is spent, so there's about 990 odd thousand remaining unallocated within that, and the government set some fairly tight parameters around the expenditure of that. But councillors, should always feel that they can have some input into that as we go forward, whether it be through workshops or things like that, to help the council staff identify what the priorities should be in regards to finishing those. Big piece of work is in what we call our business plans and our service reviews across our business units through each department. So there's a fair piece of work to be done still on that area. The finance system was a big task, and it's been done where the two councils have brought the two finance systems and reporting systems into one, and that creates a lot of efficiencies and better management. We've still got some work to do on our land use planning, bringing the two former LEPs, the local environmental plans, together and helping to drive that. That should be over the next 12 to 18 months, rolling that out. Asset management is another big piece of work that's really an ongoing thing, but it needs a lot of work to consolidate, and with even the appointment of new staff recently, there's a lot of focus going in that area. cultural and staff development. That's always a big task, and there's a lot of work done last 12 to 18 months on that, leading through the council being required to look at the organisational structure in the first 12 months, and we'll look to see how that lands and then continue on their staff journey. So in regards to the other funding, there's the 10 million that was also allocated for stronger communities, of which the 1 million was allocated to the smaller projects and the 9 million for major projects. So that's all in the attachment, and I'd recommend that at some stage the councils have a workshop on that to really get across those major projects, where they're up to, and what's left. Particularly there's a $3 million allocation towards roads, which our Director of Engineering, Director of Infrastructure knows well about. So just wanted to recommend that report to the council.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Longworth.
As a mover of the recommendation, Mr Mayor, it gives me pleasure to be able to ascertain as somebody that supported the merger opportunity on the whole journey. We're up and about as an elected representative council. I think that imposition is where our aim was when we first set out on this journey. And can I just say that it's been difficult for the directors in lots of ways, the replacement of the general manager and other circumstances. And I just commend the attitude that's been displayed by the directors and the staff towards the intention of making this council go forward as what we plan to. So that'll be my talk this moment, Mr Mayor, to say well done at this stage. We've had some challenges, they're still not gone, but certainly in the future we can do pretty good.
Fine, thank you, Councillor Longworth. Any further comments? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
5.2 is the draft Murray Corridor Ovens Junction Erosion Management Plan. So this report is just to allow council to discuss that plan. The submissions for that close on the Wednesday the 28th of February 2018. So there's a recommendation there to note the report on the draft plan and delegate to the interim general manager authority to prepare a submission and consult with councillors prior to that submission.
Thank you. Can we have a mover, councillors? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Wales. Any questions? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
5.3 is an updated calendar for council briefing sessions and workshops, just to reflect some changes that the council laws requested at a workshop regarding pushing those briefing sessions out to later in the afternoon, and the venues are all lined up there. So that's just a formality to present a new table to council recommendations and to meet for the briefing sessions and workshops on the dates as per the table.
Okay, moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour? Against, carried.
5.4 is an important issue. It's titled Joint Organisations. The report there is outlining, the council have been through that several times around the state government's intention to voluntarily create organisations of councils that want to work together to basically work with the state on strategic planning, intergovernmental collaboration and leadership and advocacy across a regional basis. There's quite a bit of detail in the report. There is a recommendation here, but I just wanted to get council's feel on this, because as late as yesterday we got notice that the extension is now being granted for the period with councils have to decide or can decide on what groups they want to become. So I've got a recommendation there leading out of Ramrock and our discussions as councils about a possibility that the council would join the entire Riverina Murray and those councils that wish to be there. So there's a recommendation there on that. There is a fallback recommendation or a point to the recommendation that if that's not accepted by the state or the other councils don't all line up, that we would fall back into a Ramrock shaped joint organisation. And that wording is quite specific, as the government requested us to be with that. But again, due to the extension that's been recently granted, it's up to the council whether they want to move that recommendation or defer till a March council meeting. We do have till the 23rd of March to do that. I don't know what our March council meeting would fall on. 20. So we just sneak in. So that's for the council's consideration.
I'll get a mover to discuss. Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. Councillor Meagle.
So that would be, we might just put that, then you're looking for just a mover to
just to discuss this with you.
I'd really like like to move to defer that recommendation, Mr Mayor, given that we do have another council meeting before the cut-off date. Also, given that there is still a state of negotiation and flux amongst all the member councils that are included in both of those recommendations, that it would be nice to be able to have that time for you and the General Manager to negotiate and perhaps get a more firmer position. We may have that by March, and I think that would be appropriate.
Absolutely. Just on that, I was speaking to the chair of ReRock. I was travelling in this morning, and their positions changed a bit. It looks like Wagga City are still wanting to go it alone, maybe with Snowy's just as one other partner. So it'll be interesting to see where that one ends up. But other than that, there's probably 6 or 7 councils that will line up with a incorporated body, being the JO, and then the ReRock councils. So the two structures.
Yeah.
But can we have a second for that motion? Seconded Councillor Kennedy. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against? Carried.
5.5 is a model code of meeting practice review 2018. So as part of the reforms to local government, the Office of Local Government have now presented a draft new model meeting code. So there's recommendation there to review the proposed change to the model code of meeting practice currently on the council portal and provide any feedback by Wednesday the 28th of February 2018.
Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Longline. I'll put it all in favour. Was there a question there? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah.
Longline.
Accepting the opportunity or supporting the opportunity, is there any chance, Ms Kay, that through you, Mr Mayor, that some of us wouldn't mind a hard copy? I was going to print my own out yesterday, and it's about 90 pages, I think, and a bit far out in the bush to run out of printing ink, so...
That'd be good. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay. So I'll put it now. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Would someone like to move that we suspend standing?
We might defer. We're going to defer that one till 10:30. The citizenship. Or
Yep. Okay.
move to defer.
Yeah,
We're going to move to defer that one.
Yeah. So moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Law. All in favour? Against? Carried. We're running a bit early. Now we'll ask for the Corporate and Community Services report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 6.1 is a further update to Council in relation to our community strategic plan and the consultation that we currently have underway with that. So the surveys, 260 phone surveys have now been completed, and we, as you know, have been promoting the workshops that we have throughout next week. So thank you, councillors, for your availability for that, and we're going to circulate a schedule tomorrow for everyone with regard to that. Were there any questions?
Please. We've got a mover, Councillor Longline, seconder being Councillor Thomas. Councillor Longline.
Yeah, Ms Kay, can I ask a question in regard to the country people? It's a short time factor, say, for some of the meetings. How do we propose to go to notify, other than a mailbox drop, or similar to our rate notices, how do you propose that the people in the rural areas, as well as obviously the residential, but certainly the rural areas, get to know that this is available?
We've been, yeah, certainly. We've, as you know, we've printed flyers, we're using social media. We have, we're sending out written invitations to community groups. We actually also have someone here today ringing all of the contacts that we have. You know, I know from experience that it definitely can be hard to, you know, gain attendance at these things. So we're ringing all the community contacts that we have to try and encourage attendance. Yeah, today.
Thank you.
So doing everything that we can.
Hey, Councillor Longley.
Question for Ms Kay. I noted the notification's gone into the Coral Free Press and Yarrawonga Chronicle, but I think there's only 20 papers that sold of that in how long population haven't a clue of what's going on, where it is and how it is. Are we having a letterbox drop to every residence in Howell or across the council area?
They have got that organised. Howlong is very strong in terms of the social media. So posting, promoting to the two Howlong Facebook pages, which usually works really well. And then again, calling contacts that we have in Howlong. We didn't make the grapevine deadline.
It is still, it's still open, but it doesn't.
The publishing date was to work out. We've got the notice board in Howlong as well. But certainly, the grapevine in Howlong was, we did use that device.
The older people, such as myself, aren't members of Facebook, so we don't get to see that. It's only for the young ones to sling at each other. Yeah. So could we find, can we put some in the Border Mail, for example, that's the paper that's read in Howlong. Maybe some TV publicity as well.
We weren't proposing TV. We could certainly do the Border Mail, but if that's something that you think, I guess, would be really effective, but we.
Well, at least it gives them some point of contact. At the moment, they don't know. If I go and ask them about it, I had an opportunity to address some of them not long ago, but the community at large are unaware of what's going on.
Yeah, we could, we might be able to get into like a community billboard announcement type scenario. I think it would be a bit tricky to do some ads at this late stage, and obviously they're fairly expensive thing, but the community billboard announcement, it wouldn't be too late for that. Yeah, we could have a look at that.
Thank you.
But certainly open to feedback in terms of, as I said, we know that we've promoted these things in the past, and what, I guess in my experience, the only thing that really works is calling people and trying to get a really good, strong network of local people helping us to promote and encourage people to attend. The reality is people are really busy, and community meetings just don't suit everyone, which is why we're doing surveys and a range of other things. But we certainly want to do our best to make sure everyone knows that.
Yeah, I think if we give them the opportunity, then it's their opportunity. They've got the ability then to turn up or ignore us, but they need to be given the opportunity. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Wong. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Aye. Against, carried.
So item 6.2 is an update for council in relation to grants that have been submitted to the New South Wales government, and we're waiting for certainly hoping for positive announcements on these in the very near future. So the first was the New South Wales government's Stronger Country Communities program, and we, following community consultation, we submitted nearly a $400,000 grant request for toilet block improvement, and they include a new toilet block here in Banger Park. They include a new toilet block to support the new all-ability playground in Moala. That's a really important component of that project. And also an extension to the Low Square toilet block to ensure that we have all-ability access and a little family room there. So that's, we have a strong focus following Council's adoption of the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. We're working really hard to upgrade important facilities to ensure that they're accessible by all members of the community. The Howlong Preschool expansion. So we did submit an application to support the extension to the Howlong Preschool, which is something that obviously the preschool has been raising funds for and working on for a number of years. And prior to that, another grant was submitted, which was a preschool specific grant of $200,000, and so that was successful. So following that, we did have to withdraw, and we were trying to negotiate some top-up funding from this application. So we haven't been able to do that, but we have confirmed with the department that we'll be able to submit further application if I think there'll be a shortfall of $50,000 to $60,000, although the the final budget is subject to obviously tenders, and you never really know until you complete that process. So the council had offered a no interest loan to the preschool to support them in that, but obviously if we can find additional grant funding, that would be also a great outcome. And the Urana Caravan Park improvement, so the grant was submitted there for a new cabin there, and a family cabin, and one that is accessible to disabled access. And the extension for a cycleway, which is a parcel commented from the golf club. That's a project that has been earmarked for some time, and submitted a request there for 3.9 kilometres of track, which will really support the golf club now that cinema is there. So the big application, which is the New South Wales Government Regional Growth, Environmental and Tourism Fund, this was a joint application with Albury and Berrigan councils, and our component of that was over $7 million. We requested nearly $4 million worth of funding. That includes a range of different aspects of that project, which all form part of foreshore master plans that the former council had adopted some time ago. The Corowa Riverfront Master Plan was adopted more than 10 years ago, and the Mooala Foreshore Master Plan was adopted over 12 months ago. And then as well as that, really big component of that project is a cycleway from Corowa to Mooala. So 42, how many kilometres did I say there? So that'll be, and obviously the idea of that is to run up the Murray River as much as we can and connect the destination. So really major application, which will focus on economic and tourism growth. So really exciting, and we need to keep our fingers crossed in that one. So hoping that a funding announcement might be made in the near future. That was a two-phase application, so we had to, we were shortlisted following an expression of interest process, and then it was a fully fledged application, which was quite a bit of work. Yeah.
Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Moore. Any questions or comments, councillors, on any of those projects? Councillor Longwire, anything?
Yeah, if I may, through you, Mr Mayor, to Ms Kay, you mentioned the 10-year program for the River Master Plan locally, which we've been on that journey, and some of the addressing of the different areas there. One of them was particularly in the back of the John Ford area, where there's a lot of growth and all the rest of it. Is that still concurrent, or is it not part of what we can do to go forward with, decent money to make it more safe and that for people to walk and whatever?
Yeah, we've included, so this project includes a walking track along the river from the old Tractable area through around the lagoon. It includes the little boardwalk to connect up the sort of little goats track there out in front of Ballpark Caravan Park, and then it continues on into that area that you're talking about. We haven't, I guess, included enough funding to completely clear and clean that area, but we've certainly included some money to tidy it up and improve the
and the reason I asked the question, if I may, certainly in the DCP for the Prestige development area, there is a link of easement right up through there that joins up with Edward Street, and it's a great concept. That's the one that if we were able to utilise the funding coming forward and make that an opportunity to go, say, to the boundary fence of the Prestige development in the future, it's only a matter of linking it up, and it's all there ready. And that's the part that I, would be interested in to see being achieved.
And what road gets very close to that, might be just a little bit short, but it's almost 2 kilometres of 1.8 kilometres of track along here. raised, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Longmore. Any further questions about these projects, Council? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, thank you very much, Christy. We'll now move on to the Director of Finance and Organisational Development report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First report 751 is the regular statement of bank balances and reconciliation as at the end of the last month. Recommend that the report be noted.
Okay, moved by Councillor Dingle, seconded by Councillor Longley. Any questions or comments? I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Report number 7.2, schedule of investments as at the end of January 2018.
Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Neal. Any questions? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against? Carried.
The next report, 7.3, there may be some discussions about this, Mr Mayor. So it's to do with the council payment and receiving alternatives and council agency receipting, and the recommendation is to note the report.
Would someone like to move the recommendation first of all? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Whitechurch. Questions or comments? Councillor Longley. Thank you.
The removal of this, the access to the post offices in small communities is creating some angst. I've been contacted quite a number of times. Probably the postmaster might be driving that as well. But we have limited hours in the resource centre. It's open, it's not open all the time. Question, do you take cash at the resource centre? You do? But apparently there's some indication that that's a problem because they don't believe that they can take cash into the resource centre. They get it at the post office and take it in. So there's some miscommunication there, I guess. But they feel that the service the post office offers is superior to the one that the council offers. And I guess at the end of the day, we're here to service the ratepayers, and I'd like to see that system reviewed and we'll proceed back to the good old days.
Thank you, Councillor Longley. Councillor Thomas.
Just to be noted, within our business paper you've mentioned Saturday mornings. In actual fact, at our resource centres, we actually can't take council payments on Saturday mornings. It's only a library service, so that's to be noted. And I also feel that you've got 11% of the population who currently, according to our business paper, that currently use this particular service in terms of our post office. 11%, $20,000. To me, we are about creating services for our community and our ratepayers, and I would have thought retaining the service would be a positive. And the other point of call, I really feel that because we've had representation either via email, written letters and over the phone, that I'd really like to see us move into a situation where we could discuss it and then make a decision at our March meeting.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr Mayor, just in support of Councillor Longley and touching on what Councillor Thomas said, I too have had some feedback from Howlong residents, particularly ones out on a farm. It's not always convenient for them to be there when those payment times are open. They go into town and go to the post office, go to the butcher shop and do different things. So I see the point about saving some money, and I agree with that side of the thing. But the $20,000 that potentially it's costing, I was a bit the same. I thought that seemed a lot of money for the small amount of people that would have been using that service in Howlong and Mulwala, etc. I too would like to see that be investigated and a bit further as to whether or not we can reinstate that at the post offices for the likes of the people, because at the end of the day you would probably assume that it is the older generation that doesn't have internet banking and online payments, and they're the people that are suffering. So some of them probably still write out cheques and I haven't got a cheque. Have you got a chequebook, Norm? So I'd like to see that looked at and support Councillor Long.
That's okay. That's the board.
Councillor Kennedy.
As Councillor Councillor Longley and Councillor Thomas and Councillor Whitechurch. I've actually been contacted a fair few times in Mulwala, and by a couple of people, especially from Melbourne, who their mother lives in town and she can't go and pay her rates, and it's quite distressing. Like, she's an 80-year-old person. She rang me and she's been very distressed about it. She thought that the council was going to fine her for not paying her rates and things like that, and because and I've been contacted by the local post office too, saying, you know, they've had people come in and we can't even turn them away, and some of the older people are very distressed about it. So I think we need to look at probably reinstating the same thing.
Councillor Ward.
I understand that it's the $22,000 that we're concerned about, and that is being able to pay in all post offices. And I'm not sure. I query if we can just take payment in Howlong and Mulwala. People in Corowa are paying at the Corowa post office when they could come just a little bit further and pay here. We're open the same hours as the post office. So I do query whether we can just take payment through Howlong and Mulwala and not all post office.
Councillor Regal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the other aspect that hasn't yet been considered is Australia Post, who obviously did not communicate to their agencies the nature of the thing, and were the negotiating agent with council over this issue, so, and hence led council down this path because they were the ones that were dictating the terms, so to speak. So I think that a review of this and stronger negotiations with Australia Post, as Councillor Laura said, we certainly could ask for the smaller post offices where it is more relevant as opposed to Corowa where it's perhaps not as relevant. However, there's the whole point of equity, and if it's good for one then it's good for all. So I think a review and further discussions with Australia Post on how we could arrive at a better decision.
Councillor.
As Councillor Longley said, we are a service, our ratepayers. I think it should be reviewed and looked into thoroughly so we can work at the best solution.
Councillor Longley.
In light of the information received from Mr. Parker of the negotiations with Australia Post, I'd like to apologise to him for my intemperate comments in the email, and because I was blaming him for the non-communication where it was Australia Post.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'll accept that, but I will too in case any were directed at me. Okay, council is to know, so we'll put it, and obviously we'll further workshop that. Is that what you'd like to do? Workshop the issue?
Yes.
So we'll get council staff to gather some more information, we'll workshop it and make a decision at the March meeting. So all in favour? Against?
Just clarity, sorry, on that motion. It's to do, have we got an amendment, or what do we just...
the motion was just to note...
recommendation.
Was just to note the
Note the report.
Okay.
So we'll note that report and go further into the workshop.
If they want an amendment, they can, otherwise we'll just do it as a workshop.
Would you like an amendment?
No, quite happy.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, councillors, for that input. 7.4 is our quarterly budget review, a requirement, a legal requirement for us to do at least quarterly budget reviews, and this one is at the end of December 2017. And at present, as you imagine, at this time of the year, generally things are on track. We know that we'll have to make some changes here and there, but generally within the budget format that we've got. And the councillors will note that there's an attachment with a bit more detail.
Would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Longmire. Question. And seconded by Councillor question, Councillor Longmire.
If I may, through Mr. Mayor, in regard to the list of, I'm not sure how many pages are, 28 pages I think in the document. Going through that with a bit of concentration, we seem to have a lot of things on our budget that we've got a lot to do on the schedule to spend that sort of money by the end of June, remembering that we're 8 months into the journey already. So how do you, are you comfortable with that we'll get that money, or will we have to carry it over to the next budget, or how do we go? I mean, it just seems a lot of money there, and a lot of things to do that haven't been done.
Indication is, of course, with any projects that require the right sort of time management, weather conditions, a lot of those get really going in this first quarter. So a lot of those projects, they're underway. But it was an ambitious program with the changes that we've also been undertaking with the fork structures and other things. So I do hope that the March review clearly outlines that, and it will also mean that in a recent briefing, one of the councillors brought up the issue that we, because we've got some major issues to do with, to consider, like the ballpark, caravan park, the pool. We've already had the Mulwala industrial estate. That we need to see that in the whole context. And some of those projects, if they're not going to be spent, then you would have to reconsider their priorities, perhaps, or push it out into reserves where we need the funds for the long-term financial plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Watcher.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, agreeing with Councillor Longmire on a couple of those things that jumped out at me too, so that was a good clarification as to where we stand. There were a couple of things I noted in the detail capital works program, one being something that I was involved with early was the lagoon upgrade. I see there was $15,000 in there in this calendar year or financial year for an upgrade. I'm just not sure what that was, and to the appropriate member through you, Mr Mayor, what that included, because I have had a couple of people ask me if they're going to returf it or is the grass going to be reinstated, those sorts of things. I'm just unaware what that upgrade involved.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I actually went and had a look at this area a couple of weekends ago, and it's clear that the original work that was done, some of it suffered because of flooding, and so my questions to do with that particular area are trying to clarify exactly what you're asking, and so I know it's been put on the agenda, but no one's been talking about it. I was particularly concerned with the signage. That's why I was having a look at the work, but it was clear that some of the erosion's taken place because of said flooding, and you're right about the turf. The 15,000 would certainly help to bring it back to some of its old glory.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, just in following on from that, I agree, and we've all been down there and had a look at that area, so I think whether it's completely needed returfing, I don't think that would be obviously a case, but certainly some works above remedial works would need to be done, and I think that we need to be looking at scheduling that somewhere in the winter period. Probably I would think Easter is somewhere around the end of March this year. That's probably the last hurrah for skiers, maybe a little bit of Anzac Day being midweek, but we've also got some grants. I was concerned about, do we have to apply to roll those grants over for some of these capital works, in particular the Lions Park Boat Grant, which would have to be done in that period. I think that's sitting in trust or something from memory.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As I say, with the March budget review, a lot of those questions really come to the fore, and I take on grants where the application's been made. We know that we're lagging with some of the dates, and we continue where we can to push out any of the approvals into a later period if we can, and complete the ones we can't as a priority. So you might find that some of those projects get rolled over because they do have grant works attached to them that we can spend in as I said, maybe in some of the winter months, but depending on what the project is.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wiles.
Councillor Watcher, because all the work was put in the lagoon, and the way the turf is now, so to get it back to where it was before, it'll be good because it's such a great area to start all that work was done before.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Thomas, did I see you had a question? Or?
I think it's been resolved.
It's been resolved.
I think it's been resolved.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you, Councillor. 7.5 is a request to acknowledge the purchase of land at the Howlong Waste Facility. It's a closed road. Council made application going back to the 15th of September 2016. The Department of Industry has approved our request and have offered the land to us for $6,518. And that, if you can see from the map attached, it was a road effectively already closed, and if you needed to lease it or any other operational issue to do with the waste facility, obviously it needed to be incorporated. So I recommend it for purchase and attaching the common seal of the council with the appropriate signatures.
We have a move Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions on that one, councillors? Councillor Lawley.
Again for Mr Parker, I believe that road purchase was mooted because of the Cleanaway project to make it viable. If they're not going to be there, do we need to proceed to spend the money?
Just from the point of view of operational matters, if it's a road, it could, and there's something that happened on that section of the land, of course, we could be a mixed legal issues coming up. So it's better to clarify the ownership, and then you won't get into that situation. Thank you.
We'll just ask.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The reason for purchase of that road reserve is so that a landfill actually has a piece of land that's legally owned by council, which suits the liability needs of the council itself. So we need that land operationally, it's not an optional.
Any further questions on that one, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you, councillors, and Mr Goff. 7.6, proposal to develop and sell land adjacent to the Mulwala Council depot site. There's a recommendation there. There may be some discussion on this one, Mr Mayor, so...
I'll get a mover and a seconder at that rate. Moved by Councillor Wales, seconded by Councillor Thomas.
If I could just talk to this. This section of land is available. The report outlines all the considerations that were made. There is one absolute keen buyer that was that if we proceeded with this, we assume that it would be a similar dollar value to what was still the stage one of the industrial estate. So if council agrees to the recommendation, it would be that one person would be able to offer application at $39 a square metre. That the other, we haven't actually had a survey done on the block at this stage. We're ready to do that, and there may be opportunities for 5, maybe 6 blocks. The funds raised in the report, you'll note that this is part of my vision for what I'm going to be recommending for the economic development strategy for Federation Council. And item 6 is basically saying, for the time being, if council agrees to this, sales would go into a reserve, and I would bring that sort of discussion to do with what that would be used for, or could be used for, forward together, possibly with the next economic development report that's going to come to the March report, March council meeting. Some of the issues that I'm proposing to discuss at that time is to do with our what's called our Section 64 charger for water and sewage, which a number of councillors have raised in the past. And I'm going to suggest things like a rebate for certain things that might be done to offset some of that cost. It might be along the lines of energy energy situations like solar, it might be for sustainability practices, to actually enhance the idea of land development within the Federation in line with the development of the LFP and so forth. So that's the background on the report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Barnett. We've got to move this here. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just, I actually been to Mulwala Council. I went down and had a look at the site, and I actually own an industrial site out in that subdivision on the other road though, and I reckon it's a good idea. Like, it's a big block of land there the council can sell, but I still, at the moment, the Mulwala Council depot doesn't get used. It's all the blokes come to Cora, then they disperse from there. We only got in 1 day a week in Mulwala, which I think is a big hassle. I don't agree in selling all the land. I reckon we still need a depot, a vacant block next to the depot if it ever gets reused again, because at the moment you drive past there, there's piles of dirt as high as this big as this room, and it's just covered in rubbish, really. Years ago, any trees fall down, they used to go and dump it on the site there and get rid of it later. I reckon it's good for the Shire to unload stuff that's not used, but I still reckon we should be retaining probably one of them blocks there next door to it, maybe, just to keep for storage things like road bases, and as I say, when trees get knocked down, it's things like that. And if you've got people interested in buying already, why don't we go to a tender thing, like put out a tender, say, what are you willing to spend for that block? Because if future ones are going to be $50, $60 a square metre, people might be willing to pay a bit more for the front blocks along there, even though there's no curb and guttering now, it's just a dirt gutter there. But I just think that you probably could get more money from if you're willing to go to a tender thing. Yeah, that was my comments. Thank you.
So, Councillor Kennedy, would you suggest, as you suggesting, a 0.5 in there for consideration to hold a block adjacent?
I would like to move, that the council maybe retain one when they subdivide it. Maybe retain the closest block next to the yard, which can be used to keep road base, and there's a lot of fill comes from bits and pieces. Like, obviously it's got to be subdivided. Like, it's got 5 or 6 lots could be done there. Maybe keep one in the lots and sell the rest off.
Well, either that or we put it to a workshop. Do you want a workshop that further on, councillors?
I'm fine to go to the workshop. That's fine. If that's.
I'll second it. No one wants it.
So we'll move to defer that recommendation and workshop it further. Well, are you happy to?
Yes, I'm happy.
Well, Leslie, you're happy to change it? Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. The reason for bringing it to open council, even though there's certain commercial and confidence issues that you should remember in the background, and possible pecuniary interest, is so we're transparent about this particular issue. So, for instance, recommendation 4, it could well be that we set a minimum price of $50 per square metre for the other blocks, and that gives us the opportunity to do exactly what you suggested, Councillor Kennedy. But thank you very much for the input to that.
And an opportunity through that workshop to discuss the sale. Councillor Wells, did you want to make comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to say this there. Councillor Kennedy made some good points. Our depot is very important down here, and they're never too, like, a bit extra land be ideal, like a road base, or have another bit of land, because the work should be very important to work it out.
Definitely. Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, well, there's still a little bit of time, so if you'd like to move on to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment report. Yeah.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor. Reports, item 8.1 is our standard building approvals report to report on what's occurred in the previous month of January. It's there for council to note.
Moved by Councillor Neagle, seconded by Councillor Law. Questions or comments? All in favour? Against? Carried.
Report 8.2 is our development applications approved under delegation since the previous council meeting. Again, it's for noting by council.
Moved by Councillor Longwell and seconded by Councillor Neagle. question, Councillor Longwell.
Yeah, in regard to the development application, 2017-251, application for external lift and infrastructure land being lot 100 Edward Street, Coral, which is obviously this building.
Right.
So we're going into a position of at last putting in a lift for the residents?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes. The DA is basically part of the process to allow that lift to be installed on this building. The lift, as I previously reported, has been purchased, awaiting delivery in April, May. So all of this is just lining up to make sure that we've got everything in place when it arrives.
Okay, officially. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further questions? I can see a sigh of relief in that corner of the room in relation to that lift. I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Yeah, councillors, we may suspend standing orders now, and we're a little bit early, but it'll be an opportunity for a cup of coffee if you like. So would someone like to move by Councillor Engel, seconded by Councillor Wales? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
So we've got a citizenship ceremony for those that are in the gallery that weren't aware. There's 3 citizenships to be done. Well, it's taken organised now.
How long? 5 minutes?
That's great.